Welcome to On Democracy, FP Wellman. I am FP Wellman, the host of the show with the mostest. So glad to have you here. Watch on the MeidasTouch Network or wherever you find your podcast source, Apple, wherever you go. Just like, subscribe, all those things you're supposed to do. I got to tell you up front, got to like, subscribe, leave a comment. And I'm going to say that up front from now on, by the way. If you want to say hi, I'm usually online. I think I'll be online this when we put the show out this Friday night. Be sure to say hi in the comments. I love talking to you guys. I try my best to answer what I can. Sometimes there's a lot of comments and there's not. But either way, I would just love to talk with you. We got a great show. It has been crazy in DC, which we'll talk about in a second. In the meantime, we got a great guest to talk about a unique story I'm excited to talk to. So let's get on with the show. Welcome again. I am Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy. It's so glad to have you here. It's a great day. You know, I've been starting the show off for like 4 or 8 weeks now the same way. I decided this week to delete it. I'm not going to say the exact same thing, even though chaos does reign in Washington, D.C. and stuff's going on around the world. But it does reign in D.C. I think we're on our 4th or 5th Speaker of the House nominee. I believe they may finally have an answer. It's not a great answer, but the chaos in the House may soon come to an end, at least this phase of the chaos. In the meantime, voting continues in Virginia, where they're getting a close-up front row seat for this madness. I'm real proud of the Democrats in Virginia. They put out a great ad this week talking about just that. And if you want this in the House or the legislature in Virginia, here's your example of what can go on when you give Republicans power to run things. So I think it's a great moment for those of us who are political hacks. I was talking to someone yesterday. I said I had 2 hats right now. My American citizen hat is a very angry person who's frustrated that the failure of our government, the inability to actually govern, the danger to our nation and everything else. And you take that off, put the political hack hat on. The political hack part of me, the Democratic consultant, is like, thank you for the gifts of ads and things I'm going to run against you for the next 2 years, because the Republicans have shown exactly who they are if you give them the power to govern, and we need to take them out of that ability and put them back in the minority where they can't hurt anybody. So I think it's been a great example of that. Having said all that, it's a unique moment. What became clear in the last week since we last met is that if you're not an election denier, if you're not full-on seditionist, you don't have a place in the party. So we're going to go ahead and have a great guest to talk about that. My friend Aquilino Gonell is here. He is a remarkable person. So let's bring on our guest. And there you have it. I'm so glad to have this great guest today, a great American whom I've had the privilege to meet and hang out with a little bit. Aquilino Gonell is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. He's a former U.S. Army soldier like myself and an Iraq war veteran, which we'll talk about. For 17 years, he was a United States Capitol Police officer, as one of 4 police officers who testified for the House Select Committee on January 6th. He's a recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal, Presidential Citizens Medal, but most importantly, his book, American Shield, An Immigrant Sergeant Who Defended Democracy, is on presale right now. Is available November 7th. We'll put a link up in the description of the video. Got to make sure. Brother, welcome to the show. It's so glad to have you here, man.
Thank you for having me, Fred.
Well, there's a lot going on. You know, I know we're a little bit ahead of the book coming out. Pre-sales are going on, but with the speakers, all this madness, you know, it looks like the number one thing they want from a Speaker of the House, the Republican Party, is they're seditionist. I mean, it is the, you know, everybody who didn't vote to overturn the election has been shot down by Trump. I mean, I just can't imagine for you who fought for your life on January 6th. I mean, what's going through your mind as you watch this insanity where seditionists themselves, people orchestrated that day that changed your life, are the leaders of the party and may end up being in the line of the presidency?
It's very disappointing, and at the same time, it's incredible that the people who I risked my life for and my colleagues, now they are putting those people in charge potentially to be the second in line to the presidency behind the vice president. So yeah. It's astounding and disappointing.
Yeah. And do you, I mean, you talk about in your book, you talk about, you know, Josh Hawley raising his fist, and you talk about the orchestrators, this madness. One of the things that struck me is, you know, you were there till 3 a.m. After all the violence, even as the Senate, you know, Ted Cruz and others still after all the violence, after so many of your peers were injured, after Ashley Babbitt was killed, they still voted against certifying the election, all that, and that shock it must have been for you. I mean, what's it like sitting in the hallway, nursing the many wounds you ended up having, knowing they're still fighting the battle that led to all this?
Just like I mentioned in the book, I mean, it's something that we thought that we were doing the right thing. We thought that we were actually protecting those elected officials, and for them to turn around and behave in this way as if nothing happened, and wear that horrible day as a badge of honor, and use it in another way, kind of like a qualifying or something that's needed for them to be elected or stay in power is remarkable upon itself, because this is coming from the party of law and order, allegedly. The rule of law supporters, the people who support the police officer in Back to the Blue. That whole false mantra that they had, or false model, no one believes it but themselves, because they claim that they do all those things, except when it comes to Capitol police officers and Metropolitan police officers who defended the Capitol on January 6th. And on that day, they all knew who was responsible for it. As I speak and write in my book, they knew who's responsible for the damage that happened on that day, and yet they espouse themselves with the same person. And not only that, they also want him to go back to and become the nominee and stay him back in power, as if nothing happened. But on January 6th, they were running for their lives. They were scared. Had it not been because the efforts that myself and my colleagues did, I think a lot of them would have not survived it.
Yeah, and it came close. As you mentioned in the book, Romney came awfully close to walking the wrong direction. If I had been one of your colleagues kind of saying, and those scenes, that banality of violence that day, it is shocking when you read it. And I can't, I'm very fortunate. I appreciate the copy to read ahead and see, just the banality of going to work that one day and then going home. 18 hours later, I think you went home, seeing this violence, knowing what caused it. I mean, you were well aware that day of. I mean, you're sitting in the squad room talking to your supervisors. You were aware. Your squad was aware of what may happen that day. I mean, what was it like in that squad room, sitting there, knowing what could be coming?
I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen. We just knew it was going to be a long day, especially leading up to January 6th. We had a lot of commotions, a lot of chatter in terms of what they were planning to do on January 6th, stop the steal, whatever that meant at that time. We didn't think that it was going to be violence, but just like kind of a general First Amendment assembly like we normally had in the past. Even during the Iraq War, when people were demonstrating across the country and across the war. I remember when I came back from Iraq, I worked some of those demonstrations against the war, and nothing major happened at that time relating to the Capitol Police and the Capitol building itself. But here on January 6th, you have all the ingredients for something to be more dangerous. And the worst thing was that many of the people who had the authority to send reinforcement, to make a decision to have a proper posture of security, were not doing so out of fear of irritating the former president or the optics of whatever they perceived that it would have been outcry by the politicians and also by the public. But when you had the former president himself cheering for the violence, not doing anything to stop the violence or to diffuse it, and not sending the reinforcements that we needed as a commander-in-chief, who he was at that time, and not sending the the military service members like the National Guards, or telling his supporter, which he held or still holds a lot of influence over them, to not to attack the capital or breach the Capitol. Instead, he egged them and continued to elevate them. And now they use that as a rallying cry, as a badge of honor, that if you go against that, then you are not a real Republican at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about how just 6 months earlier, you'd been called out for the BLM protests that have been occurring in D.C. And you were shocked that day by something like 19 federal agencies were called out, to include DOD, active duty troops from the 82nd Airborne to come to town. I mean, and the dichotomy of that versus January 6th. I mean, what were you thinking of that?
I mean, it's like I said, the response between both groups were totally different.
Right.
I get it that the Black Lives Matters and that those type of First Amendment demonstrations were to call for civil change, for something that was going on, for a large population of our country. But that's different than the inciting the mob from, because Black Lives Matter, they could have taken Portland, they could have taken Minnesota, and that still would not have threatened our system of governance. Yeah. As compared to the Trump supporters that were attacking the Capitol, breaching multiple layers of security, and to include officers in full uniform, riot uniform, telling them, go back, stop, you are unrestricted, you need to leave. Yep. So those things were not be taken into account by those people who claim that nothing happened January 6th. A lot of things happened on January 6th, and people need to realize that it could have been a lot worse, not only for ourselves, but for the country and for our democracy. Yeah, and I know it's been a struggle for you. You were one of the guys that kind of came forward of the group. There's you and Fanon and of course Harry. And I love in the prologue of the book. Then people, you're going to love this book, by the way. I hope you all buy this next week. You talk about finding your voice. The journey to finding your voice from a kid in the Dominican Republic, living with your relatives as you struggled, moving to the United States very young, and a whole life where you were told to hold your voice, and then something switched. Tell me more about that. That journey from the kid, the kid in the fields helping in the fields to stepping forward to CNN. Well, it's the rarity or the odd thing that, in my case is that growing up, I had those things. And like I mentioned in the book, every single time I tried to speak up, I learned a lesson because I got smacked in my mouth, or you don't do that, don't talk when I'm talk over me, or don't contradict me. So I learned that from the beginning, like the discipline. If it's not between, if nobody is talking to you, it's not related to you. If all these things are not involving you, then don't know that it's happening, but leave it alone. Don't get engaged. And I learned that as a little kid early on. And I remember in high school, my guidance counselor, Miss Vega, she asked me, "Hey, you wanted to recite your poem which I won in high school, first prize." They wanted me to read it in front of the school. And I said, no, I get too nervous, plus my accent. And the same thing in college when we had when I was a member of the Latino club, they have this event and they wanted me to do something. I said, nah, I'm good. So being shy, being quiet, staying out of the spotlight, that had kept me away from a lot of things, including the growing up in Brooklyn, staying out of trouble because where I grew up at that time in Brooklyn, there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of gang, a lot of drugs. Yeah. So that staying in my lane kept me out of trouble. And I learned that early on in the military as well. So I continue to use that as kind of like my safe environment to go to. And on January 6th, that was something that I couldn't do. I was trust into the spotlight. I was thrust into the fighting. I witnessed and survived a lot of those things that happened in events. So overcoming a lot of obstacles in my life, which I know in the book as well, had kept me away. But coming forward and speak on my mind, I knew January 6th, because of what happened January 6th, this was bigger than my lane. They staying quiet. Then I did listen to my wife for a few months, and when she said, don't say anything, is people going to hold all these people accountable for what they did. But once I saw that was not happening, when I saw Mitch McConnell saying, don't support this investigation, do me a favor, and vote against it. This is coming from the same people who I risk my life, from the people who, claim to be supporting the police officers, and they don't. So I knew that moment that because I was a person who was a supervisor on the force, on the Capitol Police Force, I was a sergeant in the military who served overseas. I had the injuries. I had the videos. I could identify myself in those. And I thought because of that, maybe they didn't believe Officer Harry Dunn or the other one because they didn't sustain as severe injuries, but I did.
Yeah.
And I risked my life for that. And I thought by me doing that, I would have had other people coming forward too, or more people who have believed what I had to say. And unfortunately, those individuals from the GOP, they think that we, the police officer, were the bad guys on January 6th because we stopped their supporters from breaking and besieging the Capitol and our Constitution, doing a government constitutional process.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It is. Yeah, it's insane. All of it's insane. And you did. And you stepped forward and it did change your life. And, it was gratifying to see the recognition you've gotten for that brave stance. And of course, those of us who are public figures already, been on the fighting Trump for all these years, it's not a very comfortable place. I can imagine what your wife was. Has she forgiven you yet? Or
Well, I actually had a conversation with her. I think it was last summer.
Yeah.
Where I remember coming home at 3 a.m., 4 o'clock on January 7th. And as beat up and injured as I was, I got up at 7 o'clock again. And she thought I was going to the hospital, and she got upset at me because I told her, no, help me pack. I'm going back to the Capitol. I needed it. Even though I'm injured, I could still function. I could grab my gun and use it if I need to. I was in pain on my right hand, but it's still, I was able to put myself through that pain to go to the Capitol and fight if I needed. And I never told her why until last year. And last year I asked her, some conversation came up again, and I asked her, do you realize why? Or do you want to know why I went back to the Capitol? And she said, no, I'm still upset at you. I'm like, well, I know you were upset because I know you wanted to care for me, but in my rationale on that day, I felt like I was thinking about her, protecting her, even though she didn't see it. Yeah. In my mind, it was like, if I'm at the Capitol, if I'm still defending what we have sacrificed so much, if we continue defending the Capitol, our system of governance, then at least my son and her will have a better future. If something were to happen to me, at least I'm risking my life for them. I wasn't thinking about my safety. I wasn't thinking about my body. I was thinking about them and everybody else, because at that time there were reports on internal communications that in the intel that all these people were going to come back with guns and rifles and a lot of firearms, and they were going to go back in for a second crack at it. So what was my job and my duty? Go back to work and not only defend the Capitol, but be there for my colleagues. As a sergeant that I was, I needed to be there for my colleagues and help any way, shape, or form that I could to defend the Capitol. And if that meant sacrificing myself for a better future, not only for my son and her, then that will be it. And then she kind of like understood that, but she's still upset at me for doing that. I'm like, well, and one thing that she reminded me was that when I did leave, because she wanted to, and I didn't remember this until she told me this recently. When I told her that I was going back to the Capitol, she reproached me about it. She said something, why do you have to go back, blah, blah, blah. And according to her, what I told her was, well, you knew that this was going to happen the day you marry me. I don't remember that.
Yeah, but, you're blocking that one on purpose. But,
I think, I don't think I would have done anything different that day because it was my job. I really sensed that it was my job to do and be at work based on the totality of circumstances of what was happening on that day.
Well, it's duty. And I think, and people like us are fortunate to have people in our lives probably that understand that as soldiers. I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have people who accept that. It's never easy for them, and they'll give you a hard time. And it's that banality, a term I use a lot as I was reading your book. One of the things that struck me from my own experience too is how you mentioned during the brutal, what you would describe later, medieval fighting in the North Tunnel, that your phone, you could feel your phone vibrating, right? You could feel your wife texting you and calling you, like checking on you. And it struck me. I think I told you in the pre-show, I was in Iraq up north of you at Mosul, near Mosul, Q West. And I remember the first time we got rocketed really good. They got us. And I remember hearing the rockets marching in. I know you had those kind of one that kind of march them in, right? And they were marching in. I was literally on chat with my then now ex-wife, my wife. I was talking. We were having an argument about something to do with the kids, I think. And I'm like, look, I gotta go. And she's like, oh, you're just walking away from this fight. I was like, no, I literally gotta go. She goes, why? I said, look, I gotta go hide because we're getting bombed right now. And that's that weird thing, right? That dichotomy of being in combat where your life is in danger, but also where the world's still turning, right?
Yeah, and I mean, on January 6th, I was, especially when I started feeling that vibration in my pocket from my phone. I knew most of my family and friends and people who knew me and they were trying to reach me. Those of them that knew that I was a police officer, they were reaching out, trying to find out how bad it was and how I was, whether I was at work or not. I knew my wife knew that I was at work, and I'm pretty sure the way she knowing her, she knew that I was in the thick of it and
right? Yeah,
trying to help.
Yeah,
especially when she knew that I was part of the civil disturbance unit.
Yep.
Those were the images that that were showing on TV, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and the difficulty of that is that before January 6th, she didn't watch the news. I used to argue with her, like, watch the damn news. You might learn something that, something happening around you or about things in the Capitol that are going to affect you or your lives. And she never done that. So, really, that happened? When? Well, I'm like, if you watch the news, you will find out. At least things that are going to affect your life. And on that day, she happened to be browsing through channels, and I think her mom called her, or she called her mom and told her, hey, something's going on in the Capitol. And she immediately knew that I was in the thick of it. I was on the West Front. I could identify myself very easily on pictures and videos. Yeah. I know what I did and what people did to me. And I remember a lot of those things, even though with my PTSD, I still remember a lot of those things because I I relive it a lot of times. I had to testify to the courts, to the prosecutors, to the January 6th committee, and for my own sake. I needed to keep track of what happened to me and who did what to me, so I could hold them accountable. On the West Front, I was there for the entire time. When we were defending the police line, we lost the police line. When we retreated up the stage and into the tunnel, it was a long day for me, as I talk about it in the book.
Yeah.
And not everything that happened to me is in the book, because obviously the book would have been longer. And I think to make things easier for people to understand in a nice way, I only put the most intricate things that happened to me. But there were certainly a lot of things that I'm finding out now that through videos and research in my own, like I mentioned to you earlier, roughly 40 to 60 people, probably more than that, had attacked me on that day. And some of them, they had not been arrested or identified. I think I appreciate the online sleuth for identifying a lot of those perpetrators and perps who assaulted me. Through their help, I had gained some type of accountability. Is it the type of accountability that I want? Probably not, but at least it's something. It's better than them getting 30 days home arrest or probation. I seek accountability, and through that helped me.
Yeah, and that was like one of my next questions. Actually, is like, is there any satisfaction at this point to see some accountability, even now as you climb? I mean, in this last week or so, some of Trump's own lawyers have turned in Georgia. The case in D.C. about the January 6th specifically is starting to heat up quite a bit. I mean, obviously, a couple thousand folks have been convicted. Many more thousands, like you said, are out there. I've been helping some folks identify military people in the crowd. You mentioned in the book there were several military people, Marines, and even more disturbing, your own cops. I mean, I think one of the vignettes that struck me was when you mentioned that one of your colleagues heard a National Guardsman who was on duty after January 6th bragging about having been there.
Yeah, and that's insane, because these are people who took an oath to defend the Constitution, just like I did, and here they were attacking me for doing my job, keeping my oath, doing my duty, in a different capacity than the military. But nevertheless, they took up on themselves to and attack the law enforcement officers on behalf of the former president, because he thinks that he got cheated. You could think anything that you want to, but don't take action on those beliefs, because I could sit here and tell you the moon is made of cheese. Is it made of cheese? You could care less about what I think. It's not a fact.
Right.
If the facts don't add up, then it's not. Joe believes are wrong. I don't know. I cannot explain to people who were supposedly educated, people who had honorable career, people who had a good job and a good life. And just because this person tells them, you know what, go to the Capitol and fight for me. A millionaire is asking you to fight for him. A millionaire is asking you to send him money so he could fight his criminal cases and payroll his criminal cases. Are you serious? How is that helping you as an individual? How is that doing anything to better yourself? Nothing. What he had done for you and your family. Now, all those people who had been held accountable through the court system because of what they did on January 6th, I don't feel sorry for them. I think they made themselves a useful tool for the former president, and that former president doesn't give a crap about what happened to them. And like I said, a millionaire person, or billionaire, as he claims to be, is asking common folks to fund his legal defense. Like, what happened to your millions or your billions? Are you serious?
Yeah.
But that's on them for being fooled. Sometimes it's easier. Like, I think it's the saying that says sometimes it's harder to tell a fool that they being fooled than to show them, So until they start believing the whole thing, it made no sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad you're still in the fight. And I'm glad, you've had a rough bump of it. I'm thrilled to see the book coming out. It's well deserved. I'm excited. Everybody's going to comes out November 7th. I hope everyone will buy it. We'll be plugging it this week. I know we're a little early. We'll be plugging it again when it comes out. Where can they find the book? You can find the book online right now for pre-sales, right?
Yeah, you can find it anywhere you buy your books normally.
Yeah.
The name is American Shield by Aquilino Gonell, the sergeant who defended democracy, and also in Spanish, Escudo Americano, el sargento que defendió América, la democracia, sorry. And you can find me on X, Sergeant AQGO, and follow me. I'm very humble person. I don't try to be political, but I know a lot of things about politics. I'm a down-to-earth person, and try to treat everybody the same, whether there are any group or you have a different political view than I do. I try to be respectful, and I did my job on January 6th, not thinking about any achievement medals or awards I would receive. I did it because it was my job, my duty. And I hope that people who read my book get a sense of the type of person who I am, the things that help me become who I am, and the character that I have is based on those experiences. And again, our democracy stands still today because of the action that we, the officers, did, not the other way around, contrary to what many of the elected officials tells you, that those people who assaulted the Capitol Police and defended the Capitol are patriots. They're not patriots. Those are people who were misled by the former president, and we did our job. We were the one authorized to be defending the Capitol today, not them.
Yep, and you did nobly. I watched it at home with my son, absolutely climbing the walls, seeing what you guys are going through. It's unusual to see, something like that. And for me, I mean, we talk PTSD. It was rough on me. There was things I tweeted that my son would grab me and say, "You got to delete that." I go, "Okay, that's a good point." He was sort of my filter that day. Thank God he was there with me as we watched it unfold. And I can only imagine what your family went through. I just really appreciate you, brother.
I mean, thank you. And one thing that people need to realize is that we talk normally about physical injuries and mental injuries, but you also have begin to talk about the moral injuries.
Yes.
Which is when you do the right thing, and not a lot of people think that you did the right thing. Because what we did it not thinking about the people who we protected, what were their political views or their ideology. We did it because it was our duty. And now some of those same individuals that were running for their lives with the time that we gave them on January 6th, they now say that nothing happened. But nothing happened to who? Nothing happened to them because they were able to escape to the safe house, to the safe room, or completely out of the Capitol. With the time that we did, with the action, because of the action that we took. Were we overwhelmed? Yes. Did we stop everybody from coming to the Capitol? No. But none of the members of Congress and elected officials and their staff were harmed. Their ego might have been harmed and traumatized, but we did our job, and that's what we were there for.
Yep.
If you listen to some of the most outspoken person trying to downplay what happened January 6th, you will listen to them and they say, oh, nothing happened. It was a tour. Oh, these are patriots. Or that one day in January, like the former vice president said, well, that one day in January almost killed me. That one day in January almost got you hanged. And here you are not even putting a face brace or having the courage to come back and say, you know what? I knew what the former president was going to do. I should have gone through the law enforcement agency to intel and say, because Mike Pence has a lot of credit. People give him a lot of credit for it. I don't, because he knew some of those plans. Mm-hmm. He was involved in some of these things. He knew what the former president was going to do. And yet he didn't notify the law enforcement community about potentially what will happen on January 6th.
Yep.
He only did his job on January 6th to certify the election, but he had more information than what he had told people, which is why he should have come forward and testify and give he don't even have to testify. Call a press conference and tell people what he knows.
Yep.
The same thing with Kevin McCarthy and a lot of all the members.
Yep.
Why do you think that they don't want a legitimate investigation to what happened in the Capitol? Because they all were in cahoot with it. They knew what was going to happen. It just got out of hand. And now on that day, on January 6th, they were so afraid of what they had created that they were fearful for their life. But now that they are not in that setting, in that fear, they all come back and follow through. And it's mind-boggling what they had done, especially with the speaker fight. Yeah. Now, if they see that as a qualifier for them to, if you had as a qualifier for them to become a leader, that you had to support the insurrection to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we are. Well, with that, I really just appreciate you and appreciate you taking time with us in this exciting week as your book comes out. I know it's a long journey to get to that point, and wish you the best. I will tell my guests over again, I'll mention it a lot this week, get the book, support your work, listen to the story, read the story, and understand just how important this is. So thanks for keeping up the fight, man. We appreciate you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
have a good day.
Talk to you soon. Lomi is the only appliance that prevents food waste from stinking up your kitchen and polluting the planet. Now that I've invested in Lomi, it's changed the way I deal with my food waste. Lomi is the biggest innovation in the modern day kitchen since the dishwasher. It's helped me turn my home into a climate solution. And now I can transform my organic waste into nutrient-rich Lomi earth I can feed to my plants, lawn, or garden instead of sending it to the landfill. I can help the environment and make my life easier. In just 4 hours, Lomi transforms almost anything you eat into nutrient-rich plant food at the push of a button. It's smart, simple food recycling that fits my space perfectly. You can cut the chore of doing the trash in half and eliminate bugs and odors in your kitchen. And here's a bonus. You get to feed your lawn and garden with an all-natural fertilizer that you just created out of your food scraps. All my food scraps, be it plant clippings, even those leftovers I forgot in the back of the fridge, can go into my garden, helping me grow more nutritious food at home. I learned that food waste makes up a huge portion of our personal carbon footprint. By reducing the amount of food I send to landfill, I'm helping do my part for the planet. Now, whether you want to start making a positive environmental impact or, just like me, grow just a really beautiful garden, Lomi is perfect for you. Now, head to Lomi.com/Fred. Use the promo code Fred to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off, and you head to Lomi.com/Fred. Use promo code Fred at checkout. Thank you to Lomi for sponsoring this episode. We appreciate your support. Trees are a renewable resource, but not an unlimited resource. I mean, honestly, trees don't actually grow on trees, right? So every day companies are clear-cutting forests just to produce toilet paper. Trees and wood are amazing resources, but doesn't make sense to use them for a product we only use once and flush away. Those trees deserve better. That's why Real Paper uses bamboo to make their sustainable toilet paper. Not only does bamboo grow incredibly fast, because it's a grass. It can be cut, harvested over and over again, just like the grass in your lawn. So when you use Real, it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing trees or look, I'm a tree hugger. I admit it freely. If you guys follow me, I hike every day. I'm out in the woods. And to know we're cutting down these beautiful trees for toilet paper, it just doesn't make sense. So Real, in a lot of ways, feels like an upgrade to me for my heart. It's always shipped free to my door. It's plastic-free shipping packaging. It can schedule it. I can schedule it right on the line. Subscription goes to exactly when I need it, when I need it. I never have to worry about forgetting to buy anything at the store. Real is partnered with One Tree Planted. So with every box of Real that you buy, they're funding like reforestation efforts. And if you've ever hiked in one of those places where they're putting new trees in, it's beautiful to see, and it needs money. So unlike other TP that cuts down trees, Real is actually helping organizations to replant our forest and to grow our trees back. So look, Real paper is available in easy, hassle-free subscriptions for an online purchase or a one-time purchase on their website. All orders are conveniently delivered to your doorstep with free shipping, 100% recyclable, plastic-free packaging. So if you head to Real Paper, I want you to go to realpaper.com/Fred. You sign up for subscription using my code Fred. You're going to get 30% off your first order and free shipping. So that's Real Paper, REELPAPER.com/Fred, or enter promo code Fred to get that 30% off your first order and free shipping. So let's make a change for good this year, right? Switch to Real Paper. Real is paper for the planet, and we're thrilled to have them a sponsor for this show. Man, I actually got to meet Aquilino in D.C. a couple times, and I always walked away impressed by his humble manner. It's funny, you stand around with him and Harry Dunn. Harry's the opposite of all that, and we're remarkable men that I've had the privilege to meet and talk to. I'm so thrilled we were able to have him on the show as his book comes out. I can't urge you enough. I know we're a little early, but the book comes out November 7th. You can pre-order it right now, and it's worth it. I if nothing else, support a great American who put his life on the line, is disabled, had to retire from his dream job after serving his country since he was a kid. I'll just say we don't deserve people like him. Which brings me to the topic I'll close out with. If you saw this week, as the Republicans selected yet another House candidate or Speaker candidate, they had a little press conference that night. And, I think we can show the clip, Matt. We'll show, here's how the press conference went after they selected Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you
Next question. Next question.
Yeah, members of Congress telling people to shut up, telling reporters to shut up, and booing them. The one you saw in front there, the older lady, is Virginia Foxx of North Carolina's 5th District, who has been in Congress since 2004, getting reelected by 60 points or more, or 65% of the vote each time. This last cycle, they made her district redder. And I think they've done it again in North Carolina. So she won by 40 points. Her challenger, she's 80 years old, by the way. She's been in politics since 1994. The Republicans like to talk about the swamp creatures. I dare you to find someone who's more of a swamp creature than a person who's been a professional politician since 1994 and in Congress for 20 years, 80 years old, and thinks she can tell a reporter to shut up. Her opponent last time was only to raise about $30,000 to challenge her. Now, she has a Democrat opponent now, but she's anti-choice, she's anti-LGBT, she's just one of the worst members of Congress. And there she is, front and center, telling a member of the free press to shut up. And that's the Congress. That's the Republican Congress we face. These are the people that Sergeant Gonell had to defend. They don't think they work for us. They don't think they answer to us. They don't think they have to listen to us at all. My congressman here in Missouri 2, Ann Wagner, hasn't held a town hall in 6 years. They don't care what you think. They've gerrymandered their districts. They're going to keep getting reelected. And you, the voter, you're just an inconvenience. The only thing they're afraid of is somebody more extreme than them primarying them and voting them out. That's why I'm chairman of the Forgotten Democrats, which brings me back to Forgotten Democrats, which you've heard every week. Forgotten Democrats is a simple concept. We have a unique model, multi-donors. Multi-donation is split amongst multiple candidates from the lowest had the least, the first. The Democrat that ran against Ms. Fox only raised $30,000. He would have qualified for our money at that time if we had it. If you join Forgotten Democrats, you can learn about it more on our email. You can just text Fred to 33777. Just text Fred 33777. Or even better, go to forgottendemocrats.org and join. Just join. A small donation a month is split amongst multiple candidates. We're not doing ads. We're not doing an office in a fancy city. It's simply the money is split amongst candidates, those who need the most first. That's it. And that's why we have to fight everywhere, or we end up with people like Virginia Fox, who after 3 weeks without a speaker, after the complete clusterfuck of a Congress, has the audacity to get on camera with a big grin on their face like they're freaking heroes and tell a black reporter to shut up. That's the Republicans for you. And I do appreciate the ad she's given us, because we're going to use that ad. I assure you of that. But that's where we're at. Then you can make a difference. Virginia, if you haven't voted yet in Virginia, damn it, go vote. You've got till November 7th to vote in Virginia. You do not want these idiots running your state. Go vote. Organize. Fight back. That's all we can do. We have to push back against this anti-democratic, authoritarian movement that has become what's left of the former Republican Party. With that, thanks for joining us this week. A little bit more of a serious show this week. Very serious topic. Great guest. I hope you'll get the book. Again, I'll plug it one more time before we go home. Pre-orders, we'll put a link in the bio here. We'll put a link in the show description. It's on our podcast. I can't tell you how important it is that we support these men and women who braved that day to fight back and defend our country. I look forward to seeing you. As always, you can find me on X/Twitter, FP Wellman, on Threads. It's blowing up right now, FP Wellman Official, FP Wellman Official on Instagram. I'd love to have you follow me there. In the meantime, keep up the fight. Thanks for joining us here on the MeidasTouch Network. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week right here.